Hi! We are leaving for a trip to Legoland with the kids. The van is sort of finished and I thought I'd show you around before we leave and then after to share what I will undoubtedly change. This video is completely voiceovered because the kids are home for summer and editing would have been a nightmare with them in the background. So first off is this corner here where we'll store our campground slippers. I have a plan of adding a border around here so they can't fall out as easily. The blocks for leveling will have to stay here while we drive. Ideally, they be in the back. Up here I store my handbag as well as all our electronics that are not in use. We bring baby monitors as well, so we can sit outside and hear them. This is our pantry. It's just a shelf for an IKEA desk on wheels with baskets inside. There is definitely room for improvement here. Here we keep our backpack and rain jackets because it's going to be a rainy trip. I have sewn these baskets to make use of the space underneath the seats. And we do store other loose items here as well, like our heat fan, our regular fan and our induction cooktop. The bulkiest car seat goes in my driver's seat when we are parked. My youngest sits in the other seat when we eat. And I bought a nice cushion for my husband because apparently the seats aren't great. I wouldn't know. I have the very cushy, nice driver's seat. Behind the seats we have a hamper and a waste bin. It's made for diapers, so it really seals in any odor. I do have some loose stuff here on the bed that I need to deal with before we drive. And I will say these beds are not fun to make, but they do work really well. I also made a fall protection for their bed because I absolutely do not trust my youngest not to fall out. I think it actually turned out looking pretty professional. I've also installed an iPad holder on the wall here so the kids can watch movies while we drive. This van is packed. There isn't any space left at all. I'll probably have opinions on this when I get home, as in later on in this video. I've also added some fall protection in the bathroom cupboard after we lost our toothpaste to an open toilet lid this Easter. All doors also have these locks on the outside for when we are driving. The fridge is full as well and I've had to use the little nets on the wall to store stuff, and kids' rain clothes goes over my driver's seat. In the back I've loaded chairs, the table and our tent and mat. We've also fixed a jerry can for petrol since our van is natural gas driven and has just a 10-liter petrol reserve tank. And Denmark is not known for having frequent natural gas stations. So this is what our campsite ended up looking like in Denmark. It was so nice to have an outdoor area for one night. A really big gust of wind grabbed our tent the next morning, and well, I don't have any footage of that mess because we were kind of busy dismantling a broken tent. And I will also have to add that we had secured this tent in 12 places. Let's just get a couple of seconds of Legoland feeling in before we go over to what I want to change or add to the van after this trip. And then we ended the trip with more things to fix on the van, as usual. Luckily only 2 minutes from home. And yes, my van is German, he insists on it, doesn't matter that we change language, it switches back. No, I don't know any German, it's an experience. So let's take a look at what I need to change, and some of these things I already knew but I didn't have time with before we left, and some I just procrastinated. We had the luxury of having built-in electric meant for heater, but it works as a normal wall outlet. We have this converter that fits when we park at a campsite with electric, and we do drag along an extension cable because sometimes they are far away from the actual site. I just need to figure out how to store these in a better way, because they are in the way. Still haven't figured out a good way to store the blocks, or I can store them in the back now since I don't have any tent anymore because it blew to pieces. Please excuse the diapers, but here we will be adding a small storage that I will mount into the floor. I haven't decided yet from which direction it should open and if I need a door or drawers. I do need to figure out a better solution for jackets. The hook works fine, but it's a bit annoying to have to move them every time I want to fold up the extension to the kitchen. I do have another hook next to the driver's seat, but it's a bit of a squeeze to put them there. I 100% need more storage, and I need themed storage. I spent so much time looking for stuff this trip. So over the kitchen I want to build a cupboard, a very shallow cupboard, but enough to store all the utensils, plates and such. So essentially small kitchen items that are not food. And I also need to remove a bunch of that stuff as well, because I do have a lot of just in case things like extra plates and stuff. Please excuse the mess in this van at this moment. I started cleaning out our stuff before I remembered that I wanted to record this. So moving the bulkiest seat and putting it in my driver's seat while parked worked fantastically well. My youngest sat in his brother's seat while we ate and had great reach at the table. I do, however, need to make some adjustments to the table. I need to move it just a few centimeters to the left on the mounting brackets because it's semi-difficult to get past the car seats. I'll also add another cupboard next to the one that's already here for more storage. The support for the fall protection and the kids' shelf will be changed. This was a last-minute solution and it's very ugly looking, but it worked really well. Our kids use this shelf to store toys and snacks, and I'm going to add some wall-mounted storage here, probably moving the white netting from up front and putting it here, and getting something else as well or more netting so they can secure their things while we drive. You can tell that this van has been rebuilt a couple of times because the ceiling has been mended after a bathroom move and after move of upper cupboards and so on. But I have to say that this is by far the best layout I've ever done. We pack our clothes in color-coordinated cubes, and I realized what a waste of space it was to put them in the cupboards, so I will be adding hooks to hang them here under the bed instead. They're not in the way of your feet, but I do really love these, and everybody has their own colors, so you can easily find your own clothes. In the bathroom I need to add a very shallow shelf so you can put things down while getting ready. And I also need to figure out what to use the wasted space in the lower cabinet for. It's only 5 centimeters deep, so I'll have to think about what I can store here. I do have a bunch of finishing touches to do, mostly trim work. But like in house renovations, trim is often left too long. Since it doesn't really affect the function, I'll get to it sooner or later, I promise. This iPad mount was one of my better last-minute purchases. It's mounted so my kids could watch both from their bed and their seats. The trip took 8 hours one way, so it was very much needed. I know our van is a bit different since its use was to drive people in wheelchairs, so we have a unique layout with no sliding door and no passenger seat in the way of the passenger door. But this design could absolutely work with a side door. You probably have to opt for a slightly more narrow kitchen and rely more heavily on the fold-out counter in front of the door, or flip the design around so that you can walk into the van between the seats and have a floor-mounted table. If you're in Sweden, this Bitama charger turns out to be fantastic, by the way, so if you need one for your car, love this. The baskets I sewed worked really well for keeping things in place, and it didn't slide out, but it was really annoying getting things in and out. So I will only be using them for things that you don't have to access several times a day, like extra roll of toilet paper and things like that. The pantry worked, but was a bit wobbly and annoying to pull out, and stuff fell behind it, so I couldn't close it properly. So I will be building a house for it out of plywood to slide in and out of. Then I can also remove the wire. I have to keep the fabric boxes inside it in place and add a lock to it instead of having to use straps to keep it in place while driving. If we go to the back, I can tell you right away that we never needed to use the jerry can, but it was so nice not having to be stressed out with 3 liters of gasoline left in the van and not knowing where the next pump would be. I really like this mosquito net, however it's way too long, so I'm going to take some of it off and re-hem it. As you can see, the broken tent currently takes up most of the space here now, but once I've gotten rid of that, I'm moving the stove all the way to the left. I thought it might end up too close to the door, but it actually isn't an issue, and I'd rather have one large garage sort of area than 2 narrow ones. The stove was great on this trip though. I will however add a lid for the pull-out storage behind the stove, so you can actually put things down while you're cooking, because that was annoying. I am going to figure out what I can store in these as well, and also how I can utilize the back doors more, because there's a lot of space between the doors and the bed. The issue is I'm not a very tall person, and neither is my husband, so we can't put anything that needs to hang from above the windows because, well, short people problems. So if you have any ideas, please post them below, because I don't know how to utilize the space and I really want to be able to do that. So that's it for the walkthrough before and after tip, what worked well and what we will change. I'll do another one of these with the changes I managed to make before and after our next trip. And if you have any questions, feel free to post them below. As usual, have a fantastic week. Bye!